Hello and welcome to the Fit Fatherhood podcast. I don't know what number week we're on at this point, but if
Oh,
I did,
man.
I would definitely let you guys know. I don't know. What would you guess? 8, 9 at this point? 12, 10?
I was gonna say, yeah, double digits, maybe a baker's dozen, if we're going back all the way to, like, when we started
Yeah.
officially. Yeah,
Yeah. At least through this year, which would give us like 10 weeks. Either way,
yeah,
Tuesday nights, we are live. Fit Fatherhood podcast. We are talking about this is a continuation from last week. So, part 2, we talked about the book All It Takes Is a Goal by John Acuff. Last week, we talked about easy goals, why they're important, how can they build momentum. We talked about that, 80% ready rather than waiting until you have all the answers to everything. Just kind of start getting things going. So, kind of the beginning foundational starting point of the book. And then going into this week, we're going to talk about middle goals. He talks about guaranteed goals, the best moments list, which will help you kind of create those goals. And I believe last week you said that you disagreed with some or one of the things. I don't know if you remember what that is or not, but maybe as we talk about it, you can bring
yeah.
that up. I am curious myself.
Well, it just I maybe misspoke when I said disagreed, but just that a lot of what I recommend to people from an entrepreneurial perspective is small goals, the easy goals that we talked about last week. Don't do those. If you do something for a week and you're changing and you're not doing it anymore, it means that you weren't really focused on what your outcome was as an entrepreneur. Like, we want to be able to adapt and shift, but if we're just giving up on something after a week, we haven't given ourselves enough time to like learn the new skill and allow those
Mhm.
things to compound. But when in the context of what we were talking about last week, where it's like, hey, let's just try something for a week. Maybe it turns into what we're going to talk about today, medium goals, longer term goals, or maybe we try it and we're like, I don't like crocheting. It's not something for me. That's
Mhm.
different. So I think that's where my mind was at last week. That was a week ago too, so now I forget. But we don't need to talk about the past. Let's talk about the future
Mhm.
and rolling our short, our small, our medium, our easy goals into medium goals if we so choose.
Right. And the easy goals, like you said, were kind of something, what can I do that I can accomplish within 7 days? And that'll kind of give me initial momentum going, because a lot of the times the hardest part is just starting. But also, too, it'll say, is this something that I'm enjoying doing thus far? And am I having an easy time accomplishing those, which is really the goal. And you talked about business stuff and fitness, nutrition. When we work with people and work with clients, like, what's the easiest thing that we can get doing now? If it's too easy or it sounds too easy, perfect, we're right on par there, and then we can build from there. So after that first week, you're going through, you're doing these goals, nailing it at least 80% of the time, really, but you're hitting them, you're seeing some progress, some momentum. Maybe you go, okay, cool, I did it for a week, let's do it for another week. And then after a couple weeks, now you're like, okay, I got this, I feel pretty good. That's when it kind of turns into that medium goal. He talks about 30 to 90 days of the medium term. That's like the timeline that you're looking at. It's something that you've already proven you can do consistently with the easy goals, but it's now something that you want to make a little bit longer, a little bit more permanent, and that clearly has a bigger impact on you, and helps develop that. So staying with the fitness example, is maybe your first week goal, your easy goal is you just want to start moving. Maybe that's go for a walk, go for a jog. You do that for the first week. If you're hitting that consistently, cool. Go into the second week. And then maybe it turns into like, okay, I want to run a 5K, right? With the ultimate goal, with the initial thought, this whole thing starting is, I want to run a marathon. If you go from doing nothing to running a marathon, that might be a little bit intimidating. Your mind might start going. You're going to be way out of your comfort zone. Your brain's going to kind of keep you back into that comfort zone and tell you, no, it's too hard. You can't do it. You have to put all this work in. It gets overwhelming. So the easy goal will get you moving. The medium goal will be that kind of midpoint of, what can I do that's a little bit shorter term, a little bit seems a little bit easier, more doable, but still is a little bit of a stretch. So that's that like 630 to 90 days that you're kind of looking for, is, okay, now I can take these easy goals, add another layer to them, add a little bit more time or effort into them, and then do them for a longer period of time to get to a bigger goal, for example, like the 5K.
Yeah, and that's where I'm historically more aligned with, is those medium goals. Like, let's give ourselves, even if it's just 30 days, like, let's give ourselves 30 days to really see if this is for me, learn some new skills, learn what works and what doesn't and how I can effectively go better.
Mm.
Don't get me wrong, I like the short goals are great for very specific things. Um, but if you have these, especially when we're talking about health and fitness, and just wellness in general, giving yourself a week to do something, yeah, well, maybe we'll pivot afterwards, but we should really be giving ourselves 30, 60, 90 days, because it's about building the habits that are going to last a lifetime. That's my opinion. And I love this book, by the way. So, but yeah. And then once we've kind of finished those 30, 60, 90 days, now what?
Yeah. I mean, so you're going into longer term things, we're talking, guaranteed goals, something that you hit over a long period of time, right? That ultimate thing being that marathon,
Mm.
as the example is, okay, we've hit that midterm goal. We know we can do it. In 90 days, we've gotten that habit down. Now we can start dialing things in a little bit more, getting more precise on what we're doing, what we're tracking. Those are kind of the habits, that we did the 5-week challenge. That kind of builds that initial foundation to let us go move forward, get more precise, get more potentially more complicated, more time consuming, just depending on that level of goal. For fitness, right? If we're running a marathon, you're going to have a very strict training schedule, where if you jumped right into that right away, you probably wouldn't be able to do it. But after your 90 days of that medium goal, you're probably ready to be more strict and more precise with what you're doing on those goals. So, again, it's just to get the momentum, get the overthinking, get the complication up and out of the way, and get you moving towards that long term goal. So, short term momentum builds that long term consistency, is what we're shooting for.
Yeah, and then you mentioned the guaranteed goals, which I don't want to say that I disagreed with necessarily, but had a little bit of trouble wrapping my head around. And you had a couple examples that we were talking about prior. One was like revolving around reading, and instead of saying that I'm going to read 50 books this year, I'm going to read a page or 3 pages a day,
Mm.
which is something that's a little bit more palatable. But my trouble with it is that if I really want to read 50 books or a year in a year, or I really want to read, a lot of books, 1 or 2 pages a day isn't really going to move that needle, right? It's going to take me 6 months to read a book. I've now granted reading one book in 6 months is better than reading no books, but if the goal is to read a lot of books, this is where I had a little disconnect with the guaranteed goal.
Mhm.
It's great to say, yeah, I checked off a goal of reading a page a day, but I'm a high achiever maybe, or like I just like setting big hairy goals and trying to hit them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it depends on what it is too. If you definitely want to read, and the guaranteed goal will get you to read, like, hey, all I have to read is one page. It's not as overwhelming, and chances are, like you said, you'll probably read more than one page. It's just like going to the gym. There's so many days. I mean, this morning was one of them where my alarm went off at 4:30, and I was like, I don't want to go at all. I don't want to do the workout. I don't want to do anything, and most of the time, the way I get myself to go is to just say, listen, just go. You don't even need to do the workout. Just go, do some quick stretches, or do the first part of the workout, or whatever it is. Just do something. And most of the time, once you're there and moving, it's like you're gonna finish the whole thing. You're gonna do more than you expected. If the workout's 10 rounds, I'll just go and I'll just do half it. I'll take an easy day. I'll do 5 rounds rather than 10. 90% of the time, 95% of the time, when I'm through that fifth round, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to finish. I'm already going. Like, just getting things moving is
Yeah.
really what it comes down to. And,
Yeah.
it translates from fitness to anything. And I know even doing stuff I didn't like to do when I was calling sellers in real estate, I hated doing that. But for me, it was, all right, I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes. And all I have to do is just make calls for 10 minutes. And if I stop after 10 minutes, I can be satisfied with what I did and not feel bad about stopping. And again, most of the time I'd get through that 10 minutes and you're just kind of going, like, it's not a big deal. Once you just got to get that momentum going. So I think I agree the guaranteed goals aren't this lofty goal that we should go for, but sometimes all you need is those to just get things going. And for
Yeah.
me, especially for me, like, I tend to kind of sit and ruminate on things rather than just like, hey, you're more of a like, all right, let's just do it. Why not just do it now? And so
Yeah.
the guaranteed goals get me moving rather than kind of pondering on
Mm.
what I should do.
I like, and when you put it that, I can really relate to the let's just go to the gym and start stretching, and then stretching turns into, dynamic stretching, and then dynamic stretching turns into sprinting.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm doing full, and James mentioned the 15-minute rule, do it for 15 minutes, and most of the time you'll find that the 15 minutes goes by real fast, or you end up going way longer. So appreciate that, James. Um, as we're kind of wrapping up today, we wanted to, or today's episode, we wanted to kind of leave you with something. Being, I'm gonna have you take over again, Zach. um, being
The best
the
moments list?
memories, yeah, the memories list, the best moments. This was kind of like my big takeaway. I like to have like a one or two, really big takeaways from books that I read. This is something that we're implementing, and we're trying to implement with our school community as well. So we're kind
Mhm.
of unveiling it here in a sense.
Yeah, it was one of the big things too, and I sat down and actually did it. So we can talk about what I wrote, but essentially, the best moments is he talks about pretty early in the book as a way
Mhm.
of like if you don't not really sure what goal you want to go for, or if you have a ton of goals and you're like, well, I can't do all of these at one time. He talks specifically focusing on one area of your life and picking one goal within that, but if you have all of these things that you want to do or you think you like doing or anything like that, is to go back through all of your past experiences and specifically the best moments of your life. And what I really liked about what he said is it's not you're really the only one that's seeing it, and you
Mm,
could send it to other people, but you're the only one seeing it. So don't let your mind get kind of confine you and create rules around it. Like just be what it's going to be. Brag about stuff. Like talk about all the good things that you did. I think he referenced it as don't let the bouncer keep your stuff in come from
mm,
coming in. So just anything good that's happened in your life, just jot it down, and it can be an event. It can be with people, by yourself, like accomplishment. Just really anything that you can look back on over the past. I forget what he used, 20 years.
yeah,
So depending on how old you are, like it might, for me, I'm 33, so 13 to 33. Like most of the stuff that I have was probably within like the last 10, maybe 15
yeah,
years. But just going through and just kind of jotting all of that stuff down, I literally went into a Google sheet and said like memory, and then it talks about category, which we'll get to in a second. But just all the things I could think of, and there was a bunch of stuff that popped in my head right away, super easy. You know, birth of my son, marrying my wife, like the honeymoon, graduating college, like all of those kind of easy milestones that popped into my head easy. But then I kind of got stuck. I don't know. I got to 30 maybe before I started losing
mm,
momentum. And that's when I went through my Google Photos and just kind of like scrolled. I went all the way back to the beginning and things popped up from there. I probably pulled another 10 or 20 from there. And, Facebook memories too. You can kind of go through all of that. So go through all those, list all that stuff, and then categorize it. It was like relationships. So did you do something with somebody else? So it was an achievement. So was it something that you accomplished? Maybe you passed a licensing exam or graduating college. Was there an object involved, like specifically like buying a new car? And then the third one, or the fourth one, I'm blanking on. It was object, relationship. I forget what the fourth one is.
I forget what he called it. Yeah, experience, like, or
I think that might be it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
So
forget how he called it.
the point of doing that is to get some gratitude. It makes you feel good. It kind of gives you an idea of what means more to you, and because he then categorizes like how many are objects, how many are experiences, how many are relationships, so you can kind of see what
What
things have
moves you?
happened to you in the past that you've enjoyed that you can now focus more time on. For me, objects was like, and I think he said it too in the book, was 4 or 5 things. Like it wasn't like I'm not an objective driven person. Like that's not what drives me. Doing things with people, relationships and experiences, those are what drive me. I've had so many of those. So doing that breakdown is fun. And then you don't just do it once, you continue every day. You can sit down, people talk about grateful list like for the day. You can just go through and like, what's one thing that happened that was great today? Like it doesn't have
Yeah,
to be this huge thing either, but it's just like, you know what? I went home and on my way home from work, every light was green and I got home 10 minutes faster than I normally do. Right. So it can be simple things like that where you just kind of take the gratitude on that and just kind of build it. And you could just get hundreds and hundreds of things on the list. And that
yeah,
helps kind of guide maybe where you want to focus your time at.
yeah. This is a very powerful mental exercise. Like you said, it you can get 10, 20, even 30 that are like really easy. Bought my first car, kissed my first girlfriend, whatever, all those things, and then it gets more difficult. And you have to really kind of go a little bit deeper. What is it that moves me? What is it that I'm really passionate about? What are the things that make me excited? And then we can go from that list and go, how can we build our life around this now? And how can we create more of these that we can put onto this list? And so I like that what you mentioned at the end of doing something every single day. And I really like the green lights thing because it reminded me of the quote, like, what you appreciate appreciates. And so
Mhm.
if you appreciate having all the green lights, you'll start to notice that you get more green lights. It's just this weird phenomenon. But do you have any do you have anything else before we hop over to our call?
Our Zoom? No, no.
Yeah.
I think it's something that I'm working on is not letting things get frustrate me, things out of my control. It's the I don't know who it was, Eckhart Tolle or it was some no, it was someone else. He was in a Holocaust and he wrote a bunch of books after. I
Mm,
cannot think of his name, but
yeah.
his thing was like your reaction to something is the time like the shorter you can make it from when it happens to how you react. Like I forget what the exact quote was, but it's just like
Yeah.
not letting like the only way something is negative is if you let it be negative based on how you react to it. Like if it's not in your control, then don't worry about it. Like just don't react to it. So that's something I'm working on personally. So the gratitude thing helps with not reacting negatively to something that's completely out of my control. Traffic, whatever. There's nothing I can do. How can I enjoy this time I have in the car or wherever it is?
Yeah. I love that. Zach, James said, do this in the evening, and then you can use your list from your past to prime yourself in the
Mhm.
morning. So leave it to James um, to drop some gems in the chat here. Appreciate you guys for being here live. If you're watching this in the future, this is every Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. We go live here, and we have a call right afterwards where we can dive deep into the goals. We can talk further about what we talked about. If there's any clarity that you need from the podcast episode, but we're really looking to help you guys take control of your health and wellness through nutrition, through exercise, and through this guy right here. If I didn't forget anything, Zach.
No, no, join us there.
Yeah.
I plug it. My nutrition talks are every other Thursday.
Mm,
This is an off week for me. So in the future, that might not mean anything to you, but for anybody listening now or later in the week, the following week, you can register for that, get all the old recordings, all the future recordings as well. But otherwise, we hope to see you in the other Zoom and thank you for spending the last 20 minutes with us on your Tuesday night. We really appreciate it. Have a great
yeah.
rest of your night.
Later. Stay tuned for next week. We got a good one.